What's good, DWA fam? This is Jared. Don't forget to leave a review, rating, or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey y'all, and if you're new here, welcome to the family. My name is Asia.
My name is Jared, and thank you for listening to
Done with Adulting Podcast. We are really glad you're here because we're talking all things we have to do as adults that no one warned us about during the many years we were in school.
Yes, we also discuss pop culture, current events, and give our perspective on hot topic issues in our society. And even though we're best friends, we don't always agree.
Basically, we're millennials. We get it. Adulting is hard. Welcome to your safe space.
We hope you enjoy.
All right, welcome back to Done with Adulting Podcast. Today, in honor of Pride Month, we are kicking off our basically Pride series. So for the rest of this month, all of our episodes will either feature somebody or we will talk specifically about issues that the LGBTQ community faces and just lifting up their voices in general, specifically during this month. So for this episode, we're actually doing something we've never done before. We are re-releasing an episode from back in 2019. This first came out. We interviewed our good friend Brian Teague on this episode where he basically just came on and told us how we can be better allies, not just to the LGBTQ community, but to all marginalized groups. It was an amazing episode, one of our best. If you're an OG, you may have heard it before. If you're new and you haven't scrolled all the way back to our original episodes, this is one of the best ones that we did back then in the early days of the podcast. So with that said, we will get right into it. Everything we talked about on this episode is still so good and relevant. The only difference is we definitely sound a little bit more, like we were just starting out. So it's cool to see that growth as well if you've been here for a while. So hope you guys enjoy and we will get right into it.
Hey, welcome back. We are back with another episode of Done with Adulting. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Our 4-week guest marathon is coming to an end, which is very sad.
I felt kind of sad about it.
I
actually
feel so
enjoyed
sad.
having guests.
I know.
And I think today's going to be super popping.
It's going to be hilarious.
It's going to be popping.
We have a very special guest with us today. We're very excited. It's our 4th week of the guest marathon, and I just really think we saved the best for last.
I would agree.
It's going to be a great episode, so we would love to welcome Brian Teague to the podcast.
Hey.
Welcome, Brian.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. I'm a big fan of Done with Adulting Podcast. I've listened to all the episodes.
Wow, thank you.
Yeah, so far you guys are doing great.
I appreciate that. How's the sound quality got better over the time, or
Have we improved?
There has been a steady incline in the professionalism in your podcast, 100%. Anybody that listened to that first couple of episodes would definitely agree. But,
Those are the real fans.
Yeah, if you made it through that, I appreciate you for that.
It's the old adage, crawl, walk, run.
Yes, I appreciate that.
So Brian, I'll let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then I'll go on to explain what we're going to talk about today, why you're here, and all that good stuff. So what do you want us to know about you?
Well, I'm Brian Teague. You can follow me on Instagram, which is the most important thing that I want to make sure.
Drop the Instagrams early.
Early, yep. At Brian with one I, spelled phonetically. But I work in the nonprofit sector here at a mid-sized to large nonprofit. It specializes in hunger relief. Besides that, I would say my moniker is, born to party, forced to work.
Yeah, I never heard that, but I like that. I love that, actually.
That should be like the tagline for adulting as just like the definition.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, it's terrible. It's been tough, but so besides that, I would consider myself somewhat of a community organizer. I have a lot of friends. I like to go to a lot of networking events. I sit on the Young Professionals Board of the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. I also sit on the Young Advocates Board at Bay Cove Human Services, which is a great organization that has many service areas across Massachusetts. And I also sit on the Young Leaders Council at Fenway Health. So doing a lot of stuff.
Very involved.
Very involved.
Do a lot.
Very involved, which is one of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on today, because we had a very great response from the cancel culture episode, but we wanted to really elaborate and go more in depth about millennials and our, hashtag movements, being involved. There's this stigma
Social activism.
Yeah, there's this stigma. Jared, I read this thing today online that said that millennials are known for slacktivism, meaning like we want to be active, and we want to like practice activism, but all we do is hashtag about it. So we're just like slackers.
Where did you read that?
I read it on the Viacom website, but actually Viacom was doing the opposition to the assumption by saying like millennials actually aren't slacktivists because 2 out of 3, they did a study that was like 2 out of 3 millennials actually do like get out there and are doing things and have their feet on the ground.
I feel like our generation is like very heavily involved in like in the streets and like hands on.
Yeah, so I didn't really like that term.
Yeah, that's kind of strange.
That was rude.
But it might not be so inaccurate, as I'm sure we may determine by the end of this conversation.
I hope
Possibly,
so.
yeah.
So I just am so happy you're here, Brian, because I feel like just like Jared and I, me and you have some real good conversations and debates about things. And I truly value your opinion about this stuff because I know you're so active in your community. So we're going to break it down.
Well, should we also just preface the fact that I am gay? So that's going to might help listeners understand as this conversation unfolds and we talk about some of these things. But I know that you already spoke about your episode on cancel culture. So I want to give a disclaimer to anybody listening. Save your emails. We don't want them.
Jared says that all the time.
I am here representing myself and what I know about my community. I have great opinions. I happen to be right most of the time. So save your emails. Save your boycotts. It's not going to stop me.
Hey, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So,
don't be offended.
No. Good luck.
Yes, we want your perspective on things. We're going to be open and honest here. So let's just get right into it.
Hold on, I
Enough
have a
of the
question
small
first.
talk. Yeah,
Have you ever been on a podcast before?
I haven't. This is my first time.
Oh,
You seem like you've done this before. Like,
Well, I'm going to tell you, as soon as I stepped through that threshold into this studio, I felt this is right. This is right.
I belong here.
Yeah.
There was a Janet Jackson song on. He's like, this is my favorite song ever.
Very
like,
serendipitous.
yeah, this is all supposed to be happening just like this.
Yeah. And also, I do need to give a plug. I am currently working on a podcast with my creative partner, Brendan Carey, called See Everything, Say Everything. You'll be able to get that wherever you listen to your podcast. And we would love to have Jared and Asia come on and kind of talk with us about topics when we get rolling.
Oh, definitely. Tag team it.
Yeah, let us know when
I'm
you're about to
down.
drop. We'll post on our Instas and,
Yeah, we'll show you the love.
we'll show you the love.
All right.
So let's get into it. I mean, obviously we know with social media, there are just so many movements going on. Just literally to name a few: Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter movement, Trans Lives Matter movement, all those good stuff. A lot of them started with a hashtag, right? And that's something that we as millennials do very well, is organizing our community via
Social media.
Yeah.
So I think the struggle for me personally is I'm seeing all these things and I agree, right? Like I'm on board with the Me Too movement. I'm obviously on board with Black Lives Matter.
Love it.
I consider myself an ally of the LGBTQ community. But at the same time, I feel like, what does that really mean? Like, is me just posting something with a hashtag Trans Lives Matters, is that doing enough? Am I doing enough as an ally? So I would just love to hear your opinion on what you think a good ally looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like to us it could look totally different.
It could look totally different. I feel like to
Or we have
anyone,
different,
it could look
opinions.
different to everyone.
Well, I think it's going to look different depending on your stake in the game, right? So how closely you're involved to these things, number one, or how it personally affects you, right?
Right.
And I think we see that a lot. Because some people don't give a good goddamn about one of these movements until it affects them or somebody that they know. And therein lies the trouble of some of this. But just to go back to your original question, just about allyship, I think there's 4 things that make up a good ally, and that's kind of how I frame my thinking about allyship. So, number 1, you have to take on the struggle as your own. It might not affect you the same way, but you take on the struggle and the issue on your own. You transfer the benefits of your privilege to the group that's being marginalized. I think we need to always talk about privilege when we talk about allyship. It's very important. Acknowledge that while you feel the pain of the marginalized community or the community that you're being an ally to, the conversation is not fucking about you. It is not about you. So, speak up, not over.
I like that.
Yeah, speak up, not over. And an ally's job truly is to support. And then the 4th thing that I think is the most important thing for any ally to do in any space is to be aware of how much space you take up. And this is something, I read this great article, I believe it was GQ, surprisingly.
If you find it again, send it to me and I'll put it on our website under this episode so people can refer back to it.
Yeah, for sure. And it was just basically, what's the price of equality? And it was written from the lens of somebody in this LGBTQ space and seeing a plethora of bachelorette parties coming to Provincetown, which is, for those of you who don't know, it's a small artist community, a small artist enclave at the tip of the Cape. And it is very gay. It's LGBTQ friendly, probably predominantly gay white men. It kind of transferred from an artist community in the 60s, 70s that kind of got populated to now a second home space. But over the past, 5 years, it has become a destination for bachelorette parties. And basically what this article did and how they framed it was, we're not like a zoo. You can't just kind of come in here with your party and stare at us and laugh at us and then go home. Yeah, for sure. And then go home and just be like, oh, that was so fun. They were so gay. Did you see that guy walking around in a jockstrap? So
I never even thought of that, but
I know. I never thought about that either. Also, what was your number 3 point? Can you repeat that? Because
acknowledge that while you too feel the pain of the marginalized community, the conversation is not about you.
Okay, this is the one. This is the one I want to mention because I've had a lot of conversations with my friends, and I'm grateful for my friends because I can have real conversations with them and move on. I can debate with my friends and all that stuff. But
honest conversation.
I think it's so important.
That's what friendships are for.
And just to move the conversation forward. The only way we're going to move society forward is if we're having honest conversation without everyone's feelings getting hurt.
Right.
But I've had many conversations with my friends who are lesbian or gay who will say, I know what you're going through as a black person.
And they say this to you?
To my face.
Okay.
And I respond back to them honestly.
Are they white?
Of course.
That's the first problem.
And they'll say, I know what you're going through too, because when I go to places I can't hold hands with my girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. And I'm not the same at all. I recognize.
I see where you're going.
Yeah, I recognize your struggle and I am sorry that you have to go through that, but not the same. I can't take my skin off, and unless you got Brian riled up, you might not even know he's gay when he walks into a room.
Right. Well, I experience what we refer to as passing privilege. So nobody necessarily looks at me at 6'1", 200 something pounds, dressed in a very nice J. Crew shirt and think, oh, look at this homo. I experience a lot of times being hit on by straight women or being able to kind of chameleon. Whereas people of color, as you're explaining, and I'm talking over you, doing such a bad job at being an ally, you don't have that luxury of being able to blend in or take your color off.
Right. Which is why I was so glad you made that point, because that made me think about it. I feel like I go through that a lot, and maybe I do that. Do I do that?
I don't know.
I'm thinking now, trying to check myself. Do I do that to other people? And if I do, it needs to stop.
I feel like this is going to be a whole learning experience, because you're already coming in dropping facts and jewels, and even what you were saying, because you started off as you were going down your list for being an ally. I was hearing it as I was hearing it. I was thinking of white people trying to be allies to black people, and I guess black people taking it the wrong way. So I'm like, why are you being mad at these white people for trying to help us out, yada yada yada? But then you hit, I think it was point 3 or point 4 as you're involved, but don't get too involved. It's not about you.
Know how much space you take up. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm already learning, and we've been talking for 10 minutes already.
10 minutes.
It's funny that you bring that up. Do either of you know who Roxane Gay is?
No.
She is a New York Times best-selling author. She's a community activist. She's been involved with Black Lives Matter. She wrote a book of essays called Bad Feminist. And she is one of the people who have said pretty starkly.
I think I've heard of that.
She's great. Yeah. She's unbelievable. If you don't know about her, she's done some great things. Great writer. Go and look her up, Roxane Gay. But she is somebody that believes Black people do not need allies. And she had said,
is she Black or what is she?
She is. She is a woman of color. I believe that she is Black. I believe also that she is a queer woman. And she is just a powerhouse. She's amazing. But she wrote an essay. I forget for what magazine. I want to say Marie Claire, and it said, Black people do not need allies. We need people to stand up and to take on the problems born of oppression as their own without remove or distance. We need people to do this even if they cannot fully understand what it's like to be oppressed for their race or ethnicity, gender, sexuality, ability, class, religion, or other markers of identity. We need people to use common sense to figure out how to participate in social justice.
She's almost like taking the word ally out of it.
Out of it.
Like, we don't need allies. We just need you to be 100%.
We need you to be on board.
But, like, what does that look like? And that's what I want to talk about is, like, so maybe I'll pose a question to Jared. Like, what is is there a movement that you consider yourself an ally to as it stands today?
An ally of?
Yes. Like, something you're like, yep, I'm down for that cause.
I mean, I'm down for, like, all human rights. I'm down for gay marriage. I'm down for gay people having rights.
Great.
Obviously, Black people.
Yeah. So now my next question is, like, what are the things that you do, literally, tangibly do to support those groups?
Nothing.
Like, same.
So you probably don't do nothing. You might not realize that some
might not
things
that
you do are forms of allyship.
Like what?
I don't know because I don't know Jared that well.
I mean, I would. So I wanted to walk in the Gay Pride Parade this year, but I was out of town, I think, for work.
Okay.
But even me just walking to that, I felt like that doesn't really do anything.
It doesn't, but there's something to be said for solidarity, and for having people to walk shoulder to shoulder with. Whereas 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that probably wouldn't have even been a thought for any straight man. Because of either fear of repercussions or being cast as gay or what that would do, depending on what social circles you're in. So there's something to be said for solidarity. But if that's kind of where your allyship ends, then we can talk about that too.
It's not that much.
All right. Yeah. It isn't.
But I always think, like, if I ever saw, like, somebody getting disrespected in front of me by, say it was like a gay guy getting picked on by, I would step up and say something.
Yeah.
But
well, that's good.
like a small, like, fraction that I probably won't see.
Well, right.
I mean, I might see it possibly, but.
Well, hate crimes are on the rise, and aggressive hate crimes for all minority groups are on the rise. So you might see some.
Yeah, but I will step in.
Yeah.
I will step in.
Well,
I would like to think I would.
But do you think that you would step in for any sort of fight like that, or would it have to solely be identified as somebody being maybe bullied or kind of oppressed or that sort of thing?
I would say oppressed. Like, if I saw a man hit a woman right in front of me, I would step in and do something about that. If I saw somebody getting beat up just because they were gay, even like me and my friends, we've been out and they were like, these guys were about to jump this one guy and they actually started jumping him, and I was about to, like, go over there because I don't like people getting jumped.
Yeah,
I had nothing to do with the situation, but then I got grabbed and they were like, yo, don't worry about it. It's not, you have to know, like, that's not your business. And I'm like, it's not. But
how long ago was this?
Might have been like a year or some change ago.
So it stuck with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
They wouldn't let you be great. They didn't want you to be the hero
I
that
know.
day.
Well, I mean, I shouldn't have got involved. And I mean, the bouncers ran out and broke it up anyway. But
it's fine.
yeah, that's just something I don't like to see.
Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. So I was like, I would step in for that, but I don't know. Am I an ally? Like,
Well, I think that you just made an interesting point of something that I actually didn't mention that makes a great ally is even when you feel scared or like all of the alarm bells are going off inside of you, you got to stand up and you got to be there when it's not naturally a thing. And I don't mean to take over your podcast.
You're not taking
no.
over.
All right,
that's
great.
why we have
That's
guests.
why you're here.
All right, great. Well, I have a great.
They want to hear you.
I have a great story of where I can pat myself on the back, but also where I actually really experienced this.
Yeah.
So it was my first like big protest that I'd ever been to, and it was a march. I didn't know much about it, and it was for Black Lives Matter, and it was here in Boston, and it was very shortly after Eric Garner and Michael Brown were both killed, and not that these killings were happening to any degree less or more of what they have historically. They were just being talked about and publicized more. And
more eyes on it.
Yeah, and people are getting fed up, and as they should, and it should have happened years ago. But we are at this march, and it is thousands of people, and we start at Boston Common, and we go down to up to the State House, and we're walking around, and then they say, we're going to take the Zakim Bridge. We're going to shut down traffic, because the whole saying for that was Eric Garner, Michael Brown, shut this racist system down. And it was, we're going to stop and be an inconvenience to everybody until you pay attention and wake the fuck up. And so as we go to take the Zakim Bridge, which I did not know was in the plan, so the alarm,
shook.
Yep,
You're a little
the
shook.
alarm bells are starting to go on. We are met with a cascade of police and with the shields, and they're in riot gear, and it was tense. It was that moment of people were loud, but you could hear silence. And the leaders and the people who are on the front lines said, white people, get to the front. They're not going to shoot you on camera.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where I thought to myself, there is no fucking way I am going up to the front of this line. But as an ally and recognizing that, I walked right up to the front, and while we were at the front, the chant started to the police, who do you protect? Who do you serve? And so coupled with everything that's going on, now you're chanting at the police, challenging their jobs. Yeah. Yes, it's hostile. People are screaming at them. And I'm standing there like, oh, don't hit me. I will sue your ass.
But that's something like so crazy. I don't know if there's a movement that I would get out there and like do something like that for.
Well, even like, and that's a big example, right? Like that's an amazing thing that Brian did. But even like on a smaller scale, when you talk about standing your ground and being an ally, like really when it matters during the heat of the moment, I said this to one of my friends the other day, one of my white friends. I was like, every time I walk into a room, especially in Boston, or walk into a bar or whatever, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look around and see how many black people are in there. Because if something pops off, I need to know that these people have my back. Even if I'm with my white friends who are some of my best friends in the world, I still would trust strangers who are black people.
You have a camaraderie with them.
If something were to pop off that day, like I don't know that my friends wouldn't just sneak out the back door because it's getting hostile and heated up. So the fact that you did that is extremely admirable. But I think even on a smaller scale level, it's like if there are friends of mine that are saying they're an ally of Black Lives Matter or whatever, fighting for equal rights, but then like when it comes down to it on the day of, you're not like you're too scared to even stand your ground. Like,
yeah, no, and I think it's very, very interesting that you say that you look for people of color in those situations.
Don't you do that, Jared?
Always.
Yeah. Well, it's because
sorry to cut you off. No. If I go to a wedding, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be the only one. I'm gonna be the only one here. Then I see another one. I'm like, hey, okay.
And if I go with Terrence, we look around. We'll be like, okay, eye contact. We do the eye contact message. Like we're the only ones in here. We gotta make sure we have each other's back because you just don't know who's gonna have your back in the heat of a moment.
But those people likely have a shared experience. They've experienced something that you've experienced that no white person in there is ever gonna experience or has experienced. For the most part.
Right.
So having somebody to have that understanding, because you're not only kind of flagging them for, hey, if something goes on, I'm coming your way. It's if you see something, you know when things are going off. So you kind of have that measure of, oh, this doesn't feel right, or I've been here before.
Yeah. I guess it just turns the mirror back on myself, because even like in those situations in the heat of the moment, I'm just looking for people that look like me. It's just like these people in my life are trying to be my ally,
Yeah.
but then I still am like, not sure. Like it's like I want you to be my ally, but I don't trust you to be my ally. I don't know if that is
You
too
just don't
harsh.
give them all your faith.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Well, history is history.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
You go off what you know, or what you've seen at least.
History is history.
Well, you know who's the best at what you just described is the gays, because you never see. Am I right? You never see. You get two gay people in the room that don't know each other. They're together by the end of the night. Well, in some sort of way.
Yeah. Except this brings me to my next very big topic.
Oh, I'm into it. Here we go.
Because you just made me think of this. So I have questions.
Hit it.
Okay, and just a reminder for the disclaimer, Brian is not here to speak for all the gays. He's giving us his opinion and perspective.
You know what?
So
I'm going to double down. I'm here to speak for all the gays. Let's go.
he's claiming it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Dave Chappelle did this skit on Netflix called Sticks and Stones.
Uh-huh.
And you and I have talked about this before.
Oh, I thought it was so funny.
So it was hysterical, and there was a segment in there where he talks about the LGBT community, and it's part of it is funny because he calls them by the letter L's, B's, and T's and G's. I'm going to mirror that because I feel like it's easier to express my opinion when I use the letters. And
we should just say that we are not making fun of any, as much as I'm doubling down, we're not making fun of the community.
Not.
We're having a conversation. Enough. Save the emails. We already said it.
And so one of the things he brought up a couple of things that made me think like, wow, I never even knew that about the LGBT community, considering me running around calling myself an ally. And the first thing is that L's and G's don't really get along.
Fact.
Why?
Yeah, I don't this whole thing, yeah.
I honestly, I don't know. Well, I'm going to tell you what I think it is.
Okay.
Number one, it's because the G's are men, and they already come from a place of where they think that they need to be higher in the pecking order. A lot of especially the white gay men, because you have, two entitlements right there. You're white and you're a man. So these motherfuckers are,
they're reckless.
They're reckless. And they think, well, no, they're not even, they're reckless. I take that back. You're 100% right. They're reckless, but they also just, are not even aware of the privilege. They think that as a minority class, gay man, right? So, I've been suppressed, but you're also the highest earner out of anybody in this world, or at least in this country. Let's say that. Mm-hmm. And you've also had the right, whether or not you've been out and gay or people know, you've had the right to vote the longest and own the most property. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure where the division comes from. I think it's because there's two different communities with two different agendas on two different train tracks. But I will say, I do not have that problem with my lesbian sisters.
Right.
I do not have that problem ever. I actually am one of the few people that I know in my social circle that really enjoys lesbians. And I think that they're great people. And I also will say, any rights that the LGBT community has is because of the lesbians. They are great community organizers. All Supreme Court cases with marriage equality, or court cases for the most part with marriage equality, were lesbian couples. And they historically vote all the time. I mean, if you look at some of our leadership, our Attorney General, Maura Healey, lesbian, I believe she's married. But she, had the full support of the lesbian community, and they are great organizers. They're great. They're just good.
They're ride or dies.
They are ride or dies, and they have, and I hope this doesn't get me in trouble, but again, I don't care. They have the natural asset of female intuition. So, I mean, I think that sets them leaps and bounds ahead of any man or gay man. So it's an interesting division.
Women are elite.
I agree.
Women
Say
are
it again. We want to hear it again.
Women are the dominant species. I would say that.
I'll accept
For
that.
sure.
On behalf of all women, I'll accept your compliment.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so then, but as a follow-up to that, my real question is, one of the things he mentioned in his skit that I was very surprised by was the idea that some members of the LGBT community...
Are we going to put the Q in there?
Q, sorry. Fuck. Let's do that.
It's all right. Don't worry about it.
LGBTQ.
Can you go through the letters?
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you want me to do the full set or just the? Well, I will.
Do LGBTQ.
So we're gonna
do
LGBTQ. So lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and then IA.
What's that?
Plus.
What's
So there's
IA?
more. So I can be intersex. A can be asexual. Plus will include things like people who identify as pansexual. We also have people who are non-binary.
Yeah.
non-conforming.
Gender non-conforming. Yes, I guess that would be considered, in a technical term, non-binary. They're not fitting into the societal boxes
Norms
of male, female.
Gotcha.
So that is the LGBTQIA plus.
Okay.
So what's
Jen.
Q?
Q is queer. So
Which means what?
So it's kind of all encompassing, and there is sort of this little movement that's starting right now to get rid of all the letters and to just be Q, which I think
that's happening?
it is happening.
Where can we learn more about that?
You're invested now.
I would love to shrink the. I just need.
Oh, Asia, is
the
it hard
one-
for you?
I know. This is being the worst ally ever.
Is it really hard?
I'm
You have
just
to say
saying
4 letters.
The one letter would be a lot more inclusive because that
I
is
agree.
follow up to my question.
I agree.
Okay, go ahead.
And also, strategically speaking,
yeah, that's what I was trying
we're
to
going to
say.
piss off less people or have less asks of people to memorize these letters if we just go under Q. But on the other hand, it's like, fuck them.
Yeah,
You know,
I get
like
that.
I'm not trying to, this is my movement. This is our revolution. Like I'm not here to appease the people who can't get on board.
Agree. I agree with that statement. So, and then where I was going with that was, he enlightened me to the fact that some members of the community do not agree that the transgender experience or movement, whatever you want to call it, should be a part of the full movement for fear that they're, I'm just quoting Dave
gonna
Chappelle here,
diminish.
slowing it down. Maybe for fear that they are, it's a different, I had a friend say to me, it's a different issue. She's fighting for the right to marry someone of the same gender, not change a biological feature of herself. She's fighting for sexuality, whereas transgenders are fighting for what it has to do with their biology.
Yeah.
These are, I'm just relaying that. I'm just the relayer.
No, yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I think that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
I agree.
And and I mean that. I think that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. I think that it is selective rage and selective allyship. And I think one thing that we have to remember too is that you can be an ally in your own community, right?
Yeah.
So, and this is a great example, is that like, sure, it's hard for a lot of people to understand the difference between gender and sex and, you know, the language around all of these things. But that does not mean that we should not be arm in arm fighting for the same thing, because I can guarantee you that from the beginning of time, our transgender brothers and sisters have been marching for equal rights for everybody. And so it kind of pisses me off to hear that, but it's not inaccurate. I think if you haven't seen Sticks and Stones by Dave Chappelle, it is hilarious to me.
But don't watch it if you're someone who gets their feelings hurt, because then your feelings are going to be hurt.
But here's the thing. I think we're all from the school of what I'd like to call Joan Rivers comedy of comedy's funny. We can talk about anything. We laugh at it. And comedy since the beginning of time has been a way to hold a mirror up to society and say, this is really what you're doing. How do you like it?
Agreed.
And I think that Dave Chappelle did a great job. So if you want to see it, it's very, very funny. And I laughed because it's accurate.
I laughed. I cried from laughing so hard.
But I don't get it. But it is accurate. And I cannot remember. It was either an interview or somebody was being interviewed. And I want to say it was put out by the Human Rights Committee. And it was this gentleman who had been involved in all LGBTQ equality advancement. And he'd worked a lot on marriage equality. It got passed, and he remembered thinking, great, this is step one for our equality. Now we need to start focusing and strategizing on the transgender movement, how equality, restroom access laws, things like that. And he went around to the donors that were kind of funding his fundraising efforts, that were donating 6-7 figure gifts for the fight for marriage equality. Read, gay white men, and they closed their checkbooks. He said that they wouldn't donate. That's not our fight. This isn't our thing. It doesn't affect us. And I just think that it is a stupid way of thinking, and I think it's so selfish when you can realize the benefits of achieving some equality, but won't do that for other people,
Everyone.
especially in your community. And it's also very apparent too when I don't see gay men at women's marches or standing up for the Me Too movement. Everybody has a fag hag. We all
A what?
a fag hag. So it's a woman that generally a straight woman who. Oh, can we not?
Please break it down. Please break
No,
it
you
down.
can, you can say whatever
Say
you want. I
what
just
you
don't know
want
what.
to say,
I don't.
but we need you to break it
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that
So
means.
it is a woman who is a straight, but will tend to have a gaggle of gays and only kind of go to gay events and always be around the gays. So
Oh, okay.
a fag hag.
A straight woman with a lot of gay friends.
Ton of gay friends.
Oh,
who-
I know plenty of people like that.
Oh yeah.
I have a
All
lot
right,
of
but don't
gay
say
friends.
fag hag.
Oh,
You
Are you
guys
I
talking
can say
won't.
about?
that.
We can't say it, right?
No,
Are
I mean you
talking
can.
about, Are you talking about a straight woman with gay male
Male friends.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes. Because
That doesn't count the other way around.
yeah,
I get it.
No, you can't have a hag fag. Actually, I know a couple.
I know a couple as well.
Oh, I can
Oh,
hear
God.
the emails coming right now.
Imagine
the keyboard warriors.
sweating.
Yeah.
But no, that reminds me that division of like movement inside of a one community reminds me kind of, Jared, of light skin versus dark skin, and that whole like
Interesting.
phenomenon of.
I think that's just dumb.
I think it's dumb too, but colorism is real, and that to me is not the same, but it can be
It's like beef within
compared.
within,
Yeah,
a-
like-
within the party. Or
Yeah,
not the
like
party,
if
but in
you
the
are
community.
like so I don't know if anyone has never seen Jared or I's face. If you follow the Instagram, you can see that we're both
What's the Instagram handle?
at Down with Adulting Pod. You would see that we're both what we would describe as light skin, right? So let's say one of our dark skin friends was, I don't know, treated differently than us, which happens all the time.
For
Yo,
sure.
even us to like lighter people. I have a story for this. So
Say it.
there was when I went to Stonehill, there was this one guy.
Oh.
He's a close homie of mine. He's lighter than me, and everybody says I'm light. So I went up to him, and my parents are black, both black. So I go up to him, I'm like, "Which one of your parents is white?" He's like, "What?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Which one of your parents are white? You're mixed, aren't you?" He's like, "I'm the same color as you. What are you talking about?" And it was just like, I don't know.
That happens all the time. People ask me if I'm mixed all the time just because I'm light skinned.
Yeah, but he took like offense to it. And I'm like, oh, I didn't mean it in a bad way, but
But
it's
some
like,
people do. Some people in our community do treat people with darker skin differently.
oh yeah, but
And-
now it's going back towards like the lighter skins.
Yeah, but it reminds me of
Oh,
that,
huh. That's interesting.
isn't it?
It is. But it makes sense because our beauty standards are based off of the people who are creating the beauty industry, and it's
White
for the
people.
white people.
Yeah.
And
Taken from the culture.
yeah, for sure.
Kind of got
We
into
were
this
talking
last
about
week.
that last week.
Yeah.
We were
Oh,
talking
did you
about
talk about
whitewashing
Kylie?
things.
Oh, okay.
Well, we mentioned how Kim wears cornrows, and now everybody wants to wear cornrows and stuff
No,
like
the
that.
hell she doesn't anymore. She had been taken to task about that.
Wait, what were you about to say about Kylie?
Just the lips, the
Oh,
accentuation,
everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
the appropriation
She's a
of.
total cultural appropriator.
The bottom halves now.
She's guilty.
Everybody wants the big booties.
But I will give one nod to Kylie, and this is ridiculous for me to say.
What?
As something that touched me was her learning how to do her daughter's hair, and having no exposure. You can't.
I mean,
okay.
I get your point.
but she's supposed to do that.
Yeah, like
you can't
that's
praise her for what she's supposed
literal
to be doing.
motherly duty, so she doesn't get fucking kudos
Yeah, she doesn't get credit
for
for that.
learning how to do her mixed kid's hair. You
Yeah.
have a black child.
Like, that's
It is
what you gotta
literally
do.
your
Yeah.
responsibility,
Okay.
and so you don't get kudos for being able to do that, Kylie. Sorry, not happening.
Seeing this shows you can still be an asshole, but a marginalized population.
Hold on, but I have a question. So, in regards to being an ally, say if you are an ally, but you don't agree, or can you be an ally to a community where you don't agree with 100% of what they're doing?
Good
Great
question, Jared.
Great question.
Can you give us an example, maybe?
I can't, but
Oh, okay. That's still a good
actually, let me
question.
think about it. But
Okay.
yeah,
I would say you can, but shut up. we
because
keep it to
but
yourself.
like you said, one of your points is not about
Right.
you. Yeah.
And it's kind of, if you're going to be on board 100%, but also too, I think there's a difference between disagreeing personally or having a feeling about something, but also, there's a big difference between that and kind of rallying against a certain kind of way people are doing things, to do things the way you want to do them as an ally. So I think that you can. One thing that people don't give credit or talk about with allyship or kind of movements in general is that if you're doing everything and boycotting everything and canceling everything and at every march and making posters around the clock, you're going to get depleted because it's hard work to be an ally and to do these
There's so much to do.
Yes,
Yeah.
that
so
is
much
another
to do.
point I wanted to make. There's so
The
much.
burnout.
There's so much, and there is burnout, and I know, and I've experienced this myself, of going to every rally and being there around the clock and spending my weekends just being an angry person, like screaming,
Yeah.
that you get tired and depleted, and you're not doing anybody any favors as an ally or even as a member of the community being on the front lines depleted. You have to take time to kind of sit back, recharge, and not pick and choose your allyship, but when you show up and how you show up and in what way. So like even this conversation, for you guys to give me an hour and 15 minutes, maybe plus, they told us we could go over, to talk about, allyship and what is it to be an ally and joining the movement, you're creating space for people like me to come on and talk to your audience who may have no exposure or limited exposure or be able to re-examine how they are allies to other marginalized populations.
So this is an example of allyship because we're giving a platform.
Well, I think
Very minimal. Yeah.
No, I don't think it's minimal because I think that this is going to be your highest rated cast ever.
Claim it.
Claim it.
I don't know. She checked the numbers today, and the one last week is going off right
Brian
now.
has a huge community, so
okay.
A huge
Oh, say
you
no
can
more.
call,
Say no more.
that's a
Followers,
follower.
sorry,
Let's put the challenge out there.
Yeah.
I have a thought, and I want to bounce it off you,
Love.
Brian. And a perfect example of this is the Me Too movement.
Okay.
This is a movement that I'm feeling burnout associated with this. And this
Tell me why.
This is why. The first thing I want to say is I'm on
Disclaimer.
board. I'm on board. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I get it. But I'm having burnout and I'm having internal struggles
Okay.
because I think there have been examples of people who have expressed that they had a certain experience that aligns with the Me Too movement, and it turns out they were lying about their experience or trying to impose something on somebody else. Usually, I'm just going to put this out there, usually those people are Black men. And
I get where you're going with this.
and so then it's like it only takes one person for me, as is my
taints the
personal
well.
opinion, and yeah, it only takes one person to me to tell a false story about someone, and now my whole outlook on the Me Too movement has just been skewed. Not because I want to, like when I read someone's story that they're telling, I want to hear their story, I want to process it, I want to be able to sympathize.
empathetic,
Yeah, and my first instinct is I want to believe this person, of course. However, there have been situations where I'm like, I'm just not really sure, and I don't know if that makes me a bad ally because I don't believe someone's story.
You're like, that one? Nah, I'm not rolling with that one.
But why is that on you to decide, right? Because it's intention, not perception, right? So as a victim, if I felt, and I've done sexual harassment training and things around this, where if I felt that I was sexually assaulted, and this is my experience and how I experience things, why is it up to anybody else to determine where that lies? Unless it's a court of law.
Right.
That's my whole thing, the court of law. Like, once it goes through that, I don't know.
Or
I'm
even
kind
just
of-
like writing
Depending
someone,
on what's happening.
True.
even just like also whoever's the defendant in this situation, for lack of a better word, writing that person off, right? Like we all want to believe the victim's story. I agree with that, but also like there's two sides to stories, and now we're writing off somebody who has not been convicted of a crime or
Haven't had their due process.
haven't had their due process, right? USA.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's fair either. Just as
That's that's the whole thing with the cancel culture, because they're just canceling people without having all the information and without having that person go through their trial or their scenario.
Is that valid, or am I crazy?
I think that it is valid. And again, I don't necessarily know that I'm the best person to talk about it because I'm not a woman.
Right.
I don't know if I've ever been sexually assaulted, probably, but you don't even know these men are handsy in the club. So I don't know if I'm the right person to talk about this, but I will say I'd love to know like where you're coming from, because for me, the number of truth and valid statements
is
overwhelmingly outweighs a false story.
False
number one. Number two is that it's very interesting because I don't think that you are unique in this thought, is that I think somehow we're naturally programmed to maybe think, well, one bad apple spoils the bunch. It's like an old moniker, right?
Right.
So you can do, to quote Lady Gaga, there can be 100 people in the room and 99 people can tell you you're doing terribly, but it only takes one. It's kind of the reverse of that, right? So it's just interesting to me that we automatically will let a movement be derailed or ruined because of one issue. But it's true. And I think that we see that in the nonprofit industry a lot, right?
Yeah.
So one misstep or mistake, or you spend a little bit too much money on something that raises a ton of money, well, they're no good. They're a terrible organization, this, that, and the other thing. Luckily, that's never happened to my organization. We are very fiscally responsible and very efficient. But just in general, I mean, we saw that with Susan Komen for The Cure.
Right.
Who's done great work and has made huge leaps and bounds in breast cancer research. But they kind of got caught on their annual report spending a little bit too much money, or what people thought was a little bit too much money, and then they were canceled, or now they're a terrible organization, this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
Everybody has opinions.
Jared told me on our cancel culture episode that I wasn't being a good ally to my LGBTQ
I did not say that, did I?
members. Oh, you said it, and we can pull up the recording because we record these things.
Is this in regard to Chick-fil-A?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I did say that. Yeah,
that
was one of my
points.
points.
Let's talk about that.
And I wasn't keeping the same
you were keeping
energy
the same energy, yes.
because I choose to eat Chick-fil-A spicy chicken sandwiches while also having knowledge of the terrible ways that they treat the LGBTQ community.
Well, let's...
Is it the way they treat them or just where they were donating their money to?
Thank you.
Both. I mean, they said some things.
Who?
They just said that's what they believe. So this is one thing.
All right,
and
let's get into it.
this is going to be a question for you.
All right.
In regards to the burnout.
Yeah.
And like always protesting and
Yeah.
always having a movement. Is there ever a time when a person who's in that life just takes a step back and just lives their life?
For sure. I think if you are, most people who are big allies and on the front lines will tell you, we have to, they'll take time. And I think it's the idea of self-care, because it is tough work and it's depressing, especially if you're working in some, like, let's say human trafficking, for example.
Oh, it's heavy.
Like, can you imagine having that be your whole life, or doing that work day in, day out, and not taking 15 minutes, 20 minutes to smile? Some of this stuff is really heavy. I mean, we talked about Me Too, sexual assault, things like that.
Any improvements, they're going to be gradual over time. So that's just going to happen.
That's the hardest thing. And I feel like millennials are all about instant gratification.
And I think that's what my issue is, that people are protesting, trying to expect something to change like ASAP, but it's not going to happen. It's like, here's a question for you guys. Do you guys think that it will ever be 100% equality?
No, because...
Do you think that there will ever be...
No.
Not in capitalism.
Not in America.
Yeah. Okay, America, that's what I'm talking about. Do you think that there will ever be racism will be totally erased?
No.
Or homophobia, transphobia? Me personally, maybe I'm a pessimist. I don't think that it ever will be erased, and I think that I'm okay with that. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're okay with that?
Because there's no way that it's possible for it to be 100%. There's always going to be somebody racist.
Yeah, but there's an in-between. It can be better.
Somebody.
It can be better.
It always can be better. It always can be better.
So that's why we're doing what we do, is to make it a little bit better for hopefully our kids. It's never going to be 100% erased.
What I'm saying is that the way it seems, how it's going right now, people are expecting this to change within the next week.
Yeah.
Like, it's too extreme. Or is there such thing as too extreme if you're on the right side?
I don't know, because the time is now, right? So I think if we went back a few 100 years ago, 400 years ago, it would be an outlandish idea that people wouldn't own slaves. I think that if we went back to the 1920s, it would be crazy and unthinkable and have people taking the stance that LGBTQ couples would be able to adopt children, or that there would be churches that would welcome LGBTQ parishioners. So I think, Barack Obama, when he left office on that fateful, sad day.
So sad.
So sad. I missed that.
God, that was the saddest
It was.
day.
It was gut-wrenching.
That wasn't the saddest day. Was that the saddest day, or when?
Well, there was a Saturday. There was a saddest day up until that point. But still.
I'm at a loss for words with those people in the White House. I really am.
We'll bring you on for that episode. We'll bring you on for that episode.
The politics episode.
He's got a lot to say. He said the pendulum of justice swings both ways. And sometimes it swings far, but eventually it always comes back to the right side. And I think we have to keep that in mind. But it's frustrating as an oppressed community, and I'm not speaking for myself, I'm saying any oppressed community, to how long are we going to do this fight? How long are we going to be fighting? I mean, What did Kanye say that got him in a lot of trouble?
Oh gosh.
Right?
I still like Kanye, but that's just me.
Not
Love
keeping the same
Kanye.
energy.
Love Kanye.
Don't stop telling me to keep the same energy.
I'm just saying that.
But let's get back to that, because what got us into this conversation was, are you a good ally for Chick-fil-A?
Okay, so maybe a better question is, Brian.
Yeah.
You are my friend.
Uh-huh.
Are you offended if I eat from Chick-fil-A?
I don't really give a shit personally. But I will say that I know that if all of our allies stopped eating at Chick-fil-A and giving them money, they would not have the money to fund their super PAC, which would attempts to prevent me from adopting a child, getting married, rolling back things to a regressive state for LGBTQ rights. So it's this idea of grab them by the wallet.
So you prefer that I don't eat their sandwiches, but you personally don't care.
I don't give a shit. I honestly don't care. If I saw you eating Chick-fil-A, I'd probably send a snap to my friends that said, "Look at this homophobe."
See, that's what I'm trying to say.
Like, Chick-fil-A, that's homophobic.
I cannot. That is what.
Hold on, but do you actually believe that?
No.
Okay.
I think it's funny.
I think it's funny.
But
too.
there's some people out there who would say, "Oh, you're eating Chick-fil-A, so you're a homophobe." There's people out there who
are
would
they
say
wrong?
that. Yes.
Okay. I mean, no, it is right.
I think they're definitely wrong, because maybe if this was not Chick-fil-A, maybe if this was like a Taco Bell situation, I could give it up.
Well, that's back to the whole, even like in the previous episode, we talked about,
Are you kidding me?
if you voted for Trump, are you racist? I don't think if you voted for Trump,
No, I
that's
think
racist.
if you voted for Trump, you are.
It's just an extreme.
Is that an extreme though?
Yes.
Okay.
I know plenty of people who voted for Trump who are not racist.
And I know plenty of black people who voted for Trump who are.
We do not believe in reverse racism in this studio.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with you on
So
that
let's
one.
start. Let's start there.
Right.
Number one, but number two, the call and the dog whistle, which attracted a lot of people from the very statement that this current president, whose name I shall not mention, was "Make America Great Again." So where are we going back to? Are we going back to when I couldn't get, if my community, which was ravished by the AIDS epidemic, and our government did not do anything to do it. And let me just say this, I'm going to give a plug for my community right now. As survivors, we lost more gay men in New York died during the AIDS epidemic than the entire Vietnam War.
What?
Yeah,
More
just
gay
that I didn't
men
know.
died in New York City during the AIDS epidemic than all of the Vietnam War.
Why don't people know that? Because they don't tell us. They don't want us to know.
I don't think it's that we don't want them to know. It's that the people who are writing our history.
No, I mean, yeah, the government doesn't want us to know.
Okay, that's a little conspiracy theory. Settle down.
Oh, that's another
Infowars.
episode. Conspiracy
I
theories.
love
coming
conspiracy theories.
Oh, that's dangerous. But it's about creating, and part of allyship is creating space at the table for different voices to have representation. So if I'm sitting at the table, I'm pounding my fist saying, yeah, but what about all of these gay men that died? And, yeah, so I think that's the reason that we don't know about these things. We're not writing the curriculum.
Right. Right. So...
And all the people, to your point, Jared, about voting for Donald Trump being racist, I will say that maybe not everybody who voted for Donald Trump was a racist, but what I do know is that all racists voted for Donald Trump.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out if I can still eat Chick-fil-A or not. Have we determined
Eat
that?
Chick-fil-A. Do whatever you want. Do whatever you want.
All these places that own these restaurants, they all, like the owners, they all vote for Trump. They all love Trump.
Well, they're business
they
people.
do.
Yeah. So are you gonna
Profits over people.
Are you gonna stop eating out of those restaurants, or
No,
stop using their?
I can't even think of a single thing that I really canceled truly besides R. Kelly.
Okay. Okay. This is what I call selective outrage.
Maybe I do have selective outrage. What
We all
other things should I be
Thank you.
canceling?
That's another thing. Everybody, it's very select. It's just, I think it's faux outrage. I call it faux outrage because then people forget about it 2 weeks later and they're on to the person again.
Jared, we have a term for these people in my house, and my house is comprised of my two best friends. We call them faux-gressives. So it's these people who
I like that.
Yeah, they're beating their chest. We're going to be the progressive movement, and then another shiny object comes along. They're faux-gressive. And a lot of our politicians, and some of which who are even on the debate stage this past Saturday and running for president, I would qualify as faux-gressives. Just say what you are, but it's not in vogue right now to be anything but a progressive for the most part, for some communities. And
that's
it's very
scary, though.
Is it?
It's scary because the people that are now, we're in a presidential race, we're running for president. You're saying that you believe some of the people that were at the debate are faux-gressive.
I don't believe. I know.
And you're saying that
you can see through them. It's like
you can see
they're not
through
genuine.
No, I agree with you. What I'm saying is, I liked what you said, or I liked how you said it's in vogue right now to be progressive.
Right.
That's the scary part. Like, I think it's
within the Democratic Party. We should
right,
bust that down.
But we now, as the citizens of the United States, have to put forth a viable Democratic candidate, right? Out of all, shuffle through the nonsense, and then it's like some people, like maybe some of the same people on the other side who voted for Trump, they don't have the vision that you or I might have to be able to flush through that. So now you have all these candidates who are just being progressive because it's in vogue,
it's the cool thing
or
to do.
being faux-aggressive.
They think that's going to
and
win
they're
them the vote.
convincing the other members of the Democratic Party of this, and who might not be able to see through that, like Jared saying you can see right through them. That's Jared's perspective. Not everyone can see right through these people.
Right.
So then the chances of us putting forth a candidate who is just being progressive because it's in vogue, that's the scary part to me.
Well, right. I mean, I think we're seeing this right now, is that a lot of this administration, a lot of these career politicians are kind of riding whatever train's going by. What's going to get them through the next election?
That's bullshit.
First it was
to me.
healthcare,
Right.
then it was free college.
Absolutely.
That's why I
Now
don't really
it's,
fuck with politics like that.
The Green Deal.
So I do, and I have to hard. I very much feel like that, and I would say that probably many members of my community feel like we have to be involved in politics, and we have to drag people along. I will tell you that my parents, both Trump voters, and it killed me. It was angry. I was angry instead of explaining why I was angry or what I was feeling, right? So they love me. They're allies in this community. They want equality for all of these things that are so anti number 45 but then you go and you vote for this person. And I understand why, and I get that part of it was this kind of smoke and mirror show that he did in Kellyanne Conway.
Yep.
May she rest in peace.
Oof.
Because she is canceled.
Yeah, she's canceled.
Yeah. But I understand why, but I think part of being an ally in some of the frustrating things for myself and some of my other friends who had parents and family members that voted for this current president was day one, as 30 minutes after he was sworn in, they took down the LGBTQ page on whitehouse.gov. They would not allow, this is 30 minutes. So exactly what we knew as a community would happen. So we're talking resources for, going on. Is it safe to travel to this country for LGBTQ? Where can I find HIV resources?
They took all that down.
The entire website was scrubbed of anything LGBTQ, they immediately began rolling back NIH grants. So the Ryan White
Yeah,
fund.
Ryan White.
Is this was a young man a child really,
Mm-hmm.
I think he was 9 years old or 12 years old, who contracted HIV from a blood transfusion. So he wasn't gay, and he got this through a blood transfusion. And the NIH ended after his passing, and Elton John was a great ally to him
Yep.
in this community of getting these funds established. They've rolled back and started cutting these grants. And I mean, there's been groundbreaking HIV research and findings that have led to the prolonging of lives for people living with HIV. And so I think what's frustrating, my point was, before I got on that rant, was that it's very frustrating as a community to have people who are allies vote for people who are starkly against what we're going to believe. And when we say we know that they're going to do this, it just is hard to conceptualize how people could be allies and care about us. But I don't even care if you don't show up to the marches or all that stuff. But when you vote for people who are going to enact things that directly impact my life, and for me personally, living in Massachusetts, it is not we're not going to be affected that much. You know, we're in a very liberal state. We have a very LGBTQ friendly legislator and senators, and even our, Republican governor who totes around his gay brother on the campaign trail from time to time is also a friend of our community. So that's fine. But what I think about is, what about the 14-year-old me's in flyover states that are already sort of intolerant and lacking resources and education, and now you're making their lives even tougher? And it's those votes and the legislation that actually has a direct impact. So I think it's really important, when you're thinking about being a good ally for any community, you got to kind of practice what you preach when you get into the voting booth.
This is a personal question.
Love it.
So answer how you see fit, but I think other people can relate. Like, what did that really look like inside of your family unit when your parents voted?
Did we know each other at the time?
If you're willing to share. No, if we did not.
Okay. Disruptive would be the nicest way to put it.
Yeah.
I, at some point in time of my life, and I'm trying to end this, have a scorched earth personality. So if you do something that aggravated me or pisses me off, that's it. I don't care if I've known you for 3 weeks or for 13 years. Cut off. I'm not speaking to you. You can reach out to me, text me. And that's the way that I would deal with things, which is so unhealthy. I've noticed that, been working towards changing that. It's such a stupid way. It's basically a wall and a self-defense mechanism to not feel feelings and deal with things, because it's easier to shut things out and push people away. I didn't speak to my parents for probably, 3 weeks, definitely radio silence when they were reaching out. Went to Thanksgiving to all of my family, which, with the exception of my wonderful sisters and one of my aunts, everybody in my family, and I have a huge family, voted for this current president. So,
wow.
And it's hard to understand. How can you do that? Because this is the juxtaposition of, oh, we love you, this is great. Okay, you're not even being recognized as a person anymore,
Yeah.
by
do you
this
think that,
administration.
so I'm not saying for other people, or not for your parents, because I would assume your parents would know everything that Trump was saying in regards to the LGBT community.
No, they did not.
They didn't know, or they did know?
They did not, and I think that is also another thing, is because it's not an issue for me, it's not an issue. And that's one thing that we have to remember as allies, that even though it's not an issue for you, what makes you an ally is making it an issue for you. I mean, this was a paralyzing election, but to see so many allies kind of do something that is going to directly hurt me,
Right.
and hurt my community,
Right.
and roll back regulations and put us in a place where we're trying to be suppressed. But here's the thing, we're used to that. I don't know how much we know about what I'm calling the gay revolution, but it started off at, and we celebrated the 50th anniversary this year, although I don't know if we should call it a celebration, but at Stonewall, commonly referred to as the Stonewall riots, where 2 transgender women, and I know it's Marsha, and I cannot remember the second one's name, shame on me, New York Police Department were doing raids on gay bars, known gay bars in the village. They'd come in, kick open the doors, beat the shit out of everybody, throw them in the paddy wagon, and also have their names written in the New York Times or the papers. So you're losing your job, you're losing your housing. The protections that we have now weren't there when this was happening. So, this was all happening, and it was because of a trans woman of color tossing a brick, hitting a police officer in the face, that led to 3 days of rioting that really kicked off the first kind of pride parade in this stronger together idea of coming together within our own community as allies to kind of flip the script and say, fuck off, we're not dealing with this anymore. We're going to be as brazen and loud, and we're going to survive, and you can try to push us down and kill us if you want to, but there's more and more of us, and we're coming out. And that's kind of the idea of come out wherever you are. Come out of the closet. You have to be visible. Be an ally to your own community.
I swear I learned so much today.
No, this was a good conversation.
Very natural.
Brian.
Yes.
You and I also talk a lot about just like millennial stuff. We love millennials.
Yeah.
We're both millennials.
Huge fan.
We're huge fans of
Yes,
millennials.
I really am. And I believe in us.
Well, so I want to sort of start to wrap up by asking you, like, what can we do as a generation to strengthen our allyships? Or maybe like you have some sort of things that you do as an individual with the movements that you support that you can do besides, I mean, we all know we can sign a petition and post something with the hashtag.
Absolutely.
But are there any like tips or tricks you can give us of things that you do with the movements you're aligned with that are in classic millennial nature, maybe convenient?
Yep.
It provides maybe some sort of, I don't want to say instant gratification because Jared hates that because it's going to take time to change things, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I don't hate anything.
Jared
But to add on to that, do
Yes.
petitions work?
Do petitions work?
Because I always see petitions going around. People saying sign petitions.
I would say that, so petitions like change.org, right?
Yeah.
So we've all get those in our inboxes. They, number one, when you get 300, 400, 5,000, 500,000, a million signatures or people tuning into something, that's getting somebody's attention. So while it may not necessarily be a quick change, you're getting the attention of the media, the public, maybe a politician. So that works in one way. But there are also petitions that if you need to, shame on me for not knowing this, but there was a coalition in Massachusetts that was lobbying for transgender rights, and I think it was restroom access, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, and signing the petition got that put on the bill to be voted
It
for?
needed certain amount of signatures. So there are tangible numbers of things that need to get things to go for a vote, referendums, etc. So I think they do work. Now, what happens to some of those petitions, who knows? I mean, I've probably signed 100 change.org petitions, and I maybe know that 5 have had some end result. And then, so things that we can do, I think, as millennials.
Yeah, to be better allies.
So we all have the gift of knowing how to use the internet. So that's always a place that I recommend to start. But there are a few things that I think we can do and not do, because that's an important part of the conversation. So the first thing I would say to everybody is educate yourself, but don't rely on me to educate you, right? So the idea is like, my struggle's tough enough. Now I don't need to drag you along and kind of educate you on why it's important to understand LGBTQ history. Read a fucking book.
Say it again.
Read a fucking book.
Thank you.
Go to the library. Go online. Go to Google
The
and type
information's
in.
there.
Yeah, it's all available. But don't come to me and put the onus on me to educate you of how to do things better or where you can learn more. Trust me, I appreciate it. I love that you're thinking about it, but take a fucking hike. Yeah. Don't do that.
That's the one I wanted to hear.
Yes. The other thing that we can do is specifically for LGBTQ community. I think one thing that we can do in our daily lives that would all improve our allyship is understanding covert versus overt homophobia. And when I say that, so covert homophobia would be like microaggressions, like, oh, but you're so pretty for a lesbian, or
People say that.
oh my
Are you kidding me, Jared?
You're pretty for a lesbian.
or like I like
They might not say it in those terms,
Right.
but maybe this sounds more familiar.
Well, yeah, I understand that one.
No, wait, what one do you think I'm gonna say?
You're pretty for a black girl.
No, I was gonna say.
I thought you were trying to compare.
That's what you were gonna say.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say.
but that's a great covert microaggression.
Well, some things that I hear people say. I'm looking at Jared because there
I know
are people
exactly
in his
what
friend
you're gonna
group.
say.
Like, oh, you would never like. She's a lesbian. She's
Oh,
pretty. She's so pretty.
I
How
get
can she
you.
be a lesbian?
Or
get you.
the one that I love is
That's a microaggression.
yes, and covert.
Jared's
Yeah.
laughing now.
But also, I like gay guys, but like, just don't try to sleep with me. It's like, motherfucker, you are so ugly.
Oh, yeah.
I would not even consider that. But also, no,
Yeah,
just cut it out. Or
just
like,
no.
I like gay guys who aren't too gay. It's like, well, I don't know what the hell that.
I don't know
means.
what that means. at all.
But then when we think about like overt homophobia, it's things like racial slurs or homophobic slurs, hate crimes. Like, those are the things that we see and we know that are wrong.
Yeah.
It's more about the covert homophobia that we really need to check to not use unless we're telling comedy or doing like working in a comedy club or doing something funny.
Right.
But also calling your friends on that shit and just being like, hey, microaggression. And you can make there are different ways to do it. I think as allies too, it doesn't have to be in someone's face, screaming and yelling.
Like, how dare you?
Yeah. You can do it in ways to kind of get people to check their behavior. And then I'm trying to think of other things. Oh, the other don't for me, the performative allyship. Like, we've talked about this, and maybe this is actually to bring it full circle.
Yep.
The slacktivism of just being,
Love it.
on social media and like, posting pictures from the Flag Pride Parade, but like not doing anything other than that. So it's totally easy to retweet something that may give others the idea that you're actually an ally. Like, when we're marching, you're just taking pictures and posting on social media, but it's kind of like you're parading, right? We're marching, you're parading.
Yeah, like, did
That
you
sort
just
of
go to
idea.
this march
Oh,
so you could
yeah.
post it on social media? 'Cause
sure.
Sometimes I think that
There's a
about
good
people.
amount of people that do.
Oh,
that.
absolutely. And so many companies. I mean, every June, it's like,
Oh yeah. All of Boston is like, everything
it's unbelievable.
Is like that.
It's like Nike,
Yeah,
Rainbow
Converse,
flags,
all of these things. It's just like, great. Well, you know
Hello?
what? We're here the 11 other months.
Right.
We would love
Right.
that support and the money the 11 other months.
Facts.
And, we're appreciative of it. So I think like standing up, being an ally, educating yourself, making sure that you're not doing things that take up too much space. They're all important things, but those are all great things. And things like this is great for you guys to open up the floor.
I definitely
to
learned
talk
a lot.
about this.
Yeah.
We learned
It's been
a lot.
interesting.
It's been a good time.
A lot of laughs on a heavy subject, kind of.
We always find a laugh in there or the light of it. I
You
guess.
have to.
Yeah.
Because some of this stuff is so heavy. If you don't laugh, you're just going to like
You're gonna
Be
lose
miserable.
everybody. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, you listen to our podcast, so you know that we have a Millennial Making Moves segment.
absolutely.
And today you so graciously actually referred us to our Millennial Making Moves. So thank you for that. So today we're shouting out Joshua Durando, who is a local Boston resident by way of Philadelphia.
Philly.
I knew you were going to get excited about that.
Anything other than that.
And we're shouting him out for his volunteerism and work with an organization called Brave Trails and for his overall work with the LGBTQ youth community.
Yes, Brave Trails is a leadership development summer camp for LGBTQ youth aged between 12 and 18. While Brave Trails has a lot of elements of a typical camp, the main focus is helping out campers grow, make sure that they turn into leaders and what they were trying to be destined to be. The program focuses on 4 key elements: leadership, community building, self-realization, and service.
So this summer will be Joshua's 5th summer volunteering with Brave Trails, and his experience there has inspired him to continue that work, and he is currently serving a 2-year term on the Massachusetts Commission for LGBTQ Youth, which I think is super dope.
That is
I
dope.
didn't even know we had a commission.
Not every state has that.
Mass is really out here.
They are, because we have
We lit.
representation in our leadership.
Yeah.
Senator
great.
Julian Sear, our Attorney General, many people.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, Brave Trails is currently in the midst of a Giving Tuesday campaign. They're trying to raise $25,000 to help support financial aid for campers. If you're interested, which you should be, support the cause. You can find them on Instagram at Brave Trails, on Facebook at facebook.com/Brave Trails, or at bravetrails.org.
And if you want to follow Joshua on Instagram and get more information from him, you can find him at JAY_ARDEE. Brian, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
Was so
Was
much
this everything
fun.
you imagined? Or?
This is actually more than I imagined. And I think this is my first foray of many to becoming a friend of the Done with Adulting podcast.
Of course.
You guys will be seeing Brian again, hearing
yes.
from Brian again. So if you're sick
You're
of him,
always
too
welcome
bad.
back.
Oh, I
Yes,
can't wait.
You're welcome
This has been
back
great.
anytime. And we just thank you so much. And
The Insta, Done with Adulting Pod. The Twitter, Done, WTH, Adulting. Hit the comments. I want to hear some feedback on this.
yeah, we want to hear your
I want
feedback.
to see some going
Brian,
back and forth.
shout your Insta one more time
At
for us.
Brian with one I. That's spelled phonetically, so it's BrianWithONEEYE. And also, I'd like to give a plug to Done with Adulting. I know I've said it a couple of times before during this cast, but it's amazing to have this opportunity to come here and talk about allyship and hopefully drop some knowledge on your listeners. So anybody listening, subscribe to wherever you listen to your podcast. Make sure you do that because they're doing some great things, and it's in a very funny way, and I think very tasteful.